The Abu Dhabi Grand Prix is bringing us a bunch of drama as we're going to see a lot of close fights in the championships, but primarily we are going to be seeing Sergio Perez and Charles Leclerc go head to head for P2 in the Drivers' Championship. If Charles wins, it'll be his best finish for the season as a P2 finisher in the Drivers' Championship. And for Sergio Perez, it would help him and Red Bull achieve a 1-2 in the standings. We're going to talk about all of this and more. Let's get right into it. Hello, everybody. Welcome to the Formula One Digest. I'm your host, Tyson De Silva, and I'm joined by my co-host, Mark. And Mark, Abu Dhabi is upon us. The end of the 2022 season is upon us, and we are witnessing the battle for P2 in Abu Dhabi, the coveted P2 position, Mark. And it's between two guys who have had pretty decent years in Charles Leclerc and Sergio Perez. And both have had notable races where they've looked dominant. Of course, Max Verstappen was the epitome of dominance this entire season. But, what do you think that we can expect from this race weekend?
Well, you know what? It feels just like yesterday that this entire F1 season started. And I feel like the rollout for these 2022 cars literally just happened. Uh, I'm expecting well, I don't really know what I'm expecting, to be quite honest with you. Uh, the Ferraris haven't looked strong in the last few races, most notably since Mexico, where they didn't have I think it was like a 5-6. They were positioned in the race. You know what? That's not where I was expecting them to be at all. And uh, in Brazil, it was even more lackluster. I know Carlos got the podium and Charles came in P4, but that's not necessarily the performances that I was expecting at those specific tracks for the Ferraris. And, I'm not sure where the Ferraris are going to end up because Abu Dhabi never really been a Ferrari track. Not in most years that the Ferraris have run there. And especially with these new updates, I'm pretty sure that it would be a safe bet to put my money on Sergio Perez.
Yeah, no, and I think we're going to talk a lot about this stuff, and I think that we have a really interesting race ahead of us. So we're going to be breaking down today the cars, the drivers, and even the teammates, and then we're going to give our final kind of conclusion to the video. So first of all, we have which car is better. And in my opinion, Mark, I'm going to give the edge to the Red Bull car. It's been the most dominant car on the grid this season. There's a massive straight line in the Abu Dhabi Grand Prix, and I have to give it to Red Bull just because of that. That's going to be a prime overtaking spot. So even if Charles Leclerc is ahead of Sergio Perez at some point, if they're close enough, I can easily see the just straight line speed of the Red Bull taking over. And I think overall, just this track is better suited for Red Bull than the Ferraris.
Yeah, I'm absolutely positive you're right about that. I too would give the advantage to the Red Bulls. Next to the Alpine, the Red Bulls have the fastest car in a straight line. I know the Alpine are pretty much the second fastest car in a straight line. Uh, and the Ferraris uh, might have a bit of a closer straight line speed to the Red Bulls, but I think with their aerodynamic package, uh, with how it's developed over the season, I think the Red Bull is an overall better car and is overall better at managing to get to the end of the race and really deliver on all of its performance that the package gives to the driver.
Yeah, no, 100%. And I think that you look at I think a bit of doubt in me is coming just because of how the Red Bull looked in Brazil. I think that was a track we all thought that Red Bull was going to be able to dominate easily, but the Mercedes were 100% the better car there. And even the Ferrari seemed to have a bit of an edge, but particularly on Sergio Perez, that's a bit concerning for me going into this race. But I also think it's a fresh weekend. You can't base it off of one race. He's been consistent for most of the entirety of the season. So I'm really looking forward to seeing how he's able to take that car that wasn't really doing much for him last week and pushing himself to potentially beat Charles Leclerc. And I look forward to seeing what Charles Leclerc can do in order to secure the best grid finish in his career for the championship. And this is the next part that I wanted to talk about, which is the driver profiles. Obviously, both drivers have some similarities and some differences in different ways. For Sergio Perez, I think that his biggest strength is his defense. He's an outstanding defender, a first class guy. We've seen him defend guys such as Lewis Hamilton, and I'm blanking on names here, but he has really been a very strong defender in F1. We've seen what he can do in a car that's not as dominant, but now that he's in the best car for this season, I think it's going to be really cool to see how he can push that car to the limit. But I think where he kind of lacks is in his qualifying pace, which is not on the same level as Charles Leclerc's. And even his race pace at some points can seem a little flat. Do you have any comments to make about that?
Well, yeah, I think Sergio Perez has a bit of a driver advantage over Charles when it comes to uh, tire preservation and just overall management of cars. Considering Checo has been in the sport longer than Charles has, and he's been able to drive the Pirelli tires uh, longer than Charles has in his career. That gives an edge for tire management, tire preservation, and just overall being able to get your tire to last longer than your opponent. And we've seen it a few times this season where Checo has pulled out massive stints on soft, medium tires and, brought him very good race finish. I think that's one advantage that I'm looking out for Checo. I think Charles is a little bit more racy. Charles has great skills in overtaking and has a great ability to race wheel to wheel with people. And regardless of how skilled Checo is at defending, I think the edge goes to Charles Leclerc in just being able to figure out a move that will work to get past Checo if be.
Yeah, no, I do agree with that. I think that Charles, in terms of race pace and even just, the way that he's able to overtake, and he's a very high IQ kind of driver where he doesn't just throw the car and hope for the best with like a dive or anything. He really does wait until someone is vulnerable and then he will go and take what he needs. And and that's what he's made a career out of doing, and that's why people love him so much. But I think what will also give him a bit of an edge in this weekend will be his qualifying pace. I think his qualifying pace is probably the best on the grid. He has more pole positions than he does career wins, which is sad to say. But yeah, no, I really do think that if he's able to qualify ahead of Checo, it's going to be a bit harder for Checo to get ahead just because I don't think that he has the same pace that Charles has, though he is in a better car.
Yeah, exactly. I do agree with you when you say Charles' qualifying pace is a lot faster and a lot better than Checo's. And yeah, if he has car in qualifying and Ferrari can carry over the strategy and the car race, I think that it'll be very difficult for Checo to get past Charles on the.
Oh yeah, and again, we're gonna have to wait and see what happens. I'm actually really excited to see this happen because it really is again like a do or die situation. But it's gonna be really. I think it's gonna be much closer of a fight than perhaps the Lewis versus Max race was for a majority of it last year. Um,
Hopefully, it'll be a lot more pure as well.
yeah, yeah, no, but I think the second or the like last part of this race that is probably going to be of most importance is the teammate support, Mark. And we've talked about this before where Checo has been a great teammate to Max and has defended off Lewis. He's defended a bunch of guys in order to help Max win. And you also have Carlos Sainz for Ferrari, who's also a very talented driver. Who do you think you give the edge to for having a better teammate to support them during this race? Because I feel like it's pretty obvious that both teams are going to make it a priority that these two drivers finish ahead.
I wouldn't give either of them uh, an advantage in terms of teammate option. Uh, I think if Charles or if Carlos goes out and qualifies ahead of Charles, I think Charles is going to do everything he can to go out and win the race. And I think that if Max qualifies ahead of Checo, he's going to do the same thing. And it's kind of interesting to see this dynamic where you don't necessarily have a highlighted quote unquote second driver on your team. I wouldn't consider Checo a second driver. I wouldn't consider Carlos a second driver. Yes, Checo does play second fiddle to Max sometimes, but Max just has a wild pace ahead of everyone else in the field. Uh, but Charles and Carlos, their cars are a lot closer together, and there's not a big pace disparity between them. So I don't really I think that if either of their teammates has the opportunity to win, I think it's going to come down to a straight fight between Charles and Checo at the end of the day. And you know, I don't think they'll have either of their teammates fighting for position. We could even be looking at a situation where, you know, uh, Carlos is further down the field and Max is further down the field, and that takes him out of contention to help their teammates in the battle. Or we could even look at, Max going out of the race early or Carlos going out of the race early. I Either way, I don't think either of their teammates are going to play any sort of role in helping secure this second place in the Drivers' Championship.
Wow, I'm actually kind of shocked that you say that because I honestly think it might be the opposite. Because I think looking at how history has unfolded, and you've seen what teams have done to help their preferred driver, especially in qualifying, I could really see Max giving Checo maybe a tow during qualifying to maybe combat Charles's qualifying pace. I could see Carlos maybe doing the same, but I do think that at some point there is going to be this kind of event happening where Max or Carlos is going to have a pivotal role in the race. And I don't know what is telling me to say that, but I just have a feeling that one of them is going to have to step up. And I almost want to lean towards Max because of the narrative that's been going on as of late. It might be his opportunity to show that he is a fair team player. We did have a report come out today that Red Bull took full ownership for that debacle in Brazil, saying that they only told Max to give up the position at the last turn, which doesn't make sense to me because if he's already to the last turn, why would he give it up? And Checo was already so far behind, it just doesn't make sense. But they also were quoted saying that Max is a fair team player. So I'm really interested to see what is going to happen in this in this race and how teammates can get involved and help and help their team win. But I think at the end of the day, Mark, this is all going to come down to strategy. And we've seen what happens when Ferrari tries to mix their strategy. I'm going to play the Ferrari strategy special right here because they have not had a good year in terms of their strategy. Red Bull has been the superior strategist. And I think that overall, I feel like if it comes down to strategy, I'm leaning towards Red Bull to be the favorite to win this P2 fight.
Oh, absolutely. There's no doubt about that, and I would 100% agree with you, Tyson. There's zero chance. Well, I can't say that. There's a larger chance that Ferrari is going to make a massive strategy blunder than Red Bull choosing a strategy that won't work. We've seen it so many more times that Ferrari has just absolutely blown up on the pit wall and have run around like chickens with their heads cut off. And like even going down to qualifying in Brazil, Ferrari looked like they didn't know what the heck was going on and had no clue what tire that Charles was going to go on in qualifying. And that's just qualifying. That shouldn't happen, regardless to any team. I don't even think that happens to a low budget team like Haas or Williams. We don't see that happen with them. But Ferrari is such a high budget, and we consistently see this happening. Yeah, you are absolutely right. I can't disagree with you at all. It's going to come down to strategy, and at the end of the day, Red Bull is always going to win that battle.
Yeah, no. And so I think we both can agree that even though it's going to probably come down to the wire, I'm going to give Red Bull the favor in this race. They have the faster car. They may not have the better driver in this case, but their strategy has been on point. I think that Max is also going to be a good teammate, hopefully, and help Checo out. So I'm going to give my the winning edge to Red Bull for this race. Who are you giving your edge to?
I'm going to give my edge to Red Bull as well. I think that this is Red Bull's to lose. Either way, it's going to be exciting to see a driver finish in one of their best performances in an F1 season, either or being Charles or Checo. I think it's just going to be awesome to see what happens Sunday. And, it's going to be a good day for either driver because, I don't even think Checo's finished third in the championship before. Maybe finished third last year, right?
No, it was Max, Lewis, and then Valtteri.
Okay, well, yeah. Either way, it's going to be his highest finishing position. Either way, it's going to be Charles's highest finishing position. And yeah, I definitely give the edge I give the edge to Red Bull, but we'll have to.
Yep, definitely. And so you guys should let us know what you think below. Do you think that Ferrari has the edge or does Red Bull have the edge? Definitely just let us know. We'd love to hear what your takes are. If you guys have made it this far, thank you very much for watching. Don't forget to like, comment, subscribe, all that good stuff. We are trying to hit 100 subscribers by the end of this year. So please do us that favor. Just hit that subscribe button, and we really appreciate all the support. And we're going to see you guys in the next video.